Denis Goldberg was one of the prison trialists in the Rivonia trial, and they were facing certain death. At that time, the judge had every right to sentence them to death by the hanging, and they made a bold statement, these gentlemen, that really started to chart a course for South Africa. And he's here to deliver the keynote address today. So please welcome, with the warmest, loudest cheer possible.
As you heard, I come out of the times of apartheid. Our Department of International Affairs didn't know where most African countries were. When the new government of Nelson Mandela took over and started asking questions about what's happening in various countries, how do we build relations, the old officials had no idea and no interest. South Africa has changed. We are part of Africa. We play a leading role in Africa. We are going to be overtaken in terms of gross domestic product by a country that has 3 times our population. The poverty there is much deeper than ours, and much more unequally distributed than ours. Not that we have succeeded in equalizing or closing the gap between rich and poor. But I want to come back to the quiz and why I think it's important. Let me tell you a bit of history. As you heard, we expected to be sentenced to death, and I'm very happy to report that we were sentenced to life imprisonment instead. 4 times over. But you get a discount, you only serve one of the full life sentences. But for 16 years, we were not allowed access to news of any kind. If a visitor tried to tell you something about what was happening outside, they would threaten to stop the visit. No newspapers were allowed, no radio broadcasts. There was no television in those days from 1964 onwards when we were sentenced. But you know, when you're in prison, you have a hunger to know what's happening in the world. They didn't have good dentists. They would take us out to a dentist outside and we'd see a newspaper headline on a poster. And we knew exactly what was happening in the whole world, or at least we thought we did. That's how hungry we were for it. We were able to smuggle bits of newspaper because apartheid officials got trapped in their own racism. They knew that black prisoners didn't read newspapers. So they would leave them lying around in their offices, and black prisoners were brought in to do the cleaning work, because white prisoners aren't allowed to do cleaning, you know. And also we might see what's happening in the office. And so we would sort of whisper and offer tobacco in exchange for newspapers, and tobacco is the currency in prison, and so we would get little bits of news. Or you'd be taken off for an X-ray, and you would find a 6-month-old Newsweek magazine, and you'd slip it into your underpants, and so it became hot news. Not because it was in the underpants. Oh, I'm sorry. 6 months old, and it was fresh news. We had such a hunger for it, and so that the South African Institute of International Affairs encourages schools and learners to read about the world. I think that's marvellous, and I do congratulate you all for the initiative that's been going on for how many years now? How many did you tell me?
22.
22 years. It's a remarkable achievement. I do hope that now the competition is over, you're going to go on reading the international news. I really do hope so. I hear a desperate silence there. But I also want to tell you that much as I respect the Cape Times, it has only one viewpoint about the news. And we do have satellite television now. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you, I took part in quizzes when I was at school in 1949 in my matric year. 1949 is just a few years ago. You know? And we had the same issue. Where did you get the news from? Well, there was the Cape Times and there was the Cape Argus, and there was a left-wing publication called The Guardian, which always took a different view. But it made you think. But today, not only is there radio, there's television. We have ENCA and we have SABC, and often their views differ. But we also have available to us now BBC World News, Sky Television, CNN, which has its view. We have Al Jazeera. Who else? We have Russia Today, a Chinese program. And you get such a view, different view of the same events. It depends where you're sitting and what your interests are, how you interpret the events. It's up to us to sort through it and try to make sense of the world and what we would like our government, which represents all of us, to do. I would like you to think seriously, you see, because facts are important to know. It's important to know where the countries in Africa are. It's important to know that there are terrorist groups like Boko Haram. The questions are quite brilliant, by the way, covering terrorism, political structures at the United Nations, economics, gross domestic product, and various other aspects of our world today. Really, it's a very thoughtfully constructed set of questions. But what a quiz like this and the preparation for the quiz doesn't do is look for interpretation and understanding. So I see this evening and its predecessor evenings and those still to come as a wonderful stimulus for you to maintain your interest in the world. Maybe to become students of international relations, international law, to take part in all of this, but just as ordinary citizens, to have an interest in what shapes our lives. We have problems of our own. I think we've achieved a tremendous amount, one of the things being that we can have an evening like this. Never happened in my day, when I was at school. But we take part in events in Africa despite our problems. We have troops in various countries to try and help achieve peace. We have a role to play in Africa. I'm not always happy when we export some of our great cabinet ministers to become chairperson of the African Union Commission. We need her here. But Africa is important for us as well. For our economic relations, for the strengthening of Africa as a whole, and to overcome our history as a continent, and colonial rivalries, and exploitation of resources and people, and the slavery. You're going to be voting in elections in a year or two. You're going to have to make the decisions. You're going to have to determine the policies. Please. Not because Omar said, or Opa, or Granny, or Auntie, or Uncle. You have to think about it. You have to decide. So your own understanding of not only your conditions, but of your neighbours, of communities, and of all. For me, to be human, the lesson I've learned in all the years of political activity, from not really early age, from about 20, the last 60 years of my life, in other words, is that to be human is to act when you see things that are wrong socially, that are unjust for other groups of people, and to act to put them right in a better society. And so let me end with a quote of the late Nelson Mandela, who when he was released from prison, remarked to somebody who said, well, now you're free. And he said, no, we are free to become free. Important distinction. And then he went on and he said, to be free, it's not enough to cast off your chains. One must so live one's life that one respects and advances the freedom of others. It's a remarkably deep statement. And just about the final word in his very long autobiography, on the very last page, he says, in life he has discovered that when you climb a mountain of social structures and problems, having climbed the mountain, you see there are more mountains to climb. There will always be mountains to climb. And you, having been introduced to the idea of understanding the world, you're going to have to climb those mountains and make life better for all of us. Thank you.